All right, welcome in Auburn fans and I guess Alabama fans if you're watching this video as well. We're going to once again do a statistical simulation of the game. This will be between Auburn and Georgia. Had a lot of comments on the last video calling me a fool and how can you make such ridiculous predictions. Well, the ones that I predicted well, nobody was calling me a fool. When I predicted the Alabama blowout over A&M, nobody called me a fool. So when you're in the prediction business, it's very difficult. You will either be right or wrong, and when you're wrong, you will look like a fool. It's much easier to watch a video and then after a game is over, make an idiotic comment. So you really only you look like the fool. If you want to get in the prediction business, by all means, fire up a camera and lay your predictions out there so we can look at them. I think that'd be awesome. My predictions for the Georgia game are not good for Auburn. Again, I do road statistics versus home statistics, which I think skews it a little bit, but it also accounts for those outliers when something bizarre happens. And I've run them both ways. Like the first, well, I didn't do it the first 3 or 4 games of the season, but then for the next 3 or 4, I ran it both ways. And it looked like when you compare how a team does on the road compared to how a team does at home, it was a little bit more accurate. That being said, it really all depends on who the team was playing on the road and who the team was playing at home. So when you have mismatches where the home team, for instance, is much worse than the other team is on the road in that particular instance, then the history won't indicate it as well. And that's what you run into when you look at statistics. There's many ways to try to predict a game. I only use one, and that's past statistics. Sometimes it works out well. Sometimes it doesn't work out quite so well. Nevertheless, we're looking at Georgia being able to do a pretty good job of holding Auburn defensively. Auburn on the road now is averaging 26 points a game. Georgia at home only allowing 17, so we would look at Auburn potentially being able to put up 21 in touchdowns. Depending on how heavily the team relies on field goals or is proficient at field goals, I'll sometimes add a field goal or I won't. I did in this situation, but I did it for both teams, so it's kind of irrelevant other than if you're looking for a total rather than a result, win or loss. Georgia, on the other hand, putting up 47 points a game at home. For a team that's had such troubles, I didn't really expect to see that number, so it was a little bit surprising. Auburn on the road allows 27 points a game. Not exactly what I'd call the best in the world. And they get a field goal as well. We will toss Georgia one of those as well for a score of 40. But the statistical analysis is pretty one-sided. I'll talk about one thing, but first let's just get the numbers out there. I mean, 40 to 25. It's never quite as extreme one way or the other as the numbers indicate, but more or less tries to give you an idea of a winner. I'll say this, though. Boy, if you look at the total in yards and stuff like that, it's just really not great. I don't look too much at passing yards. I did do that earlier on. I kind of stopped doing that. They're not in the video, but I mean, I can tell you what they are. You're looking at maybe Auburn coming up with around 200, slightly more than 200, and Georgia coming up with slightly more than 200. But look at the predicted rushing yards, 151 for Auburn. Auburn now on the road is averaging 200, and we mentioned this before the last game. I said if Auburn could get 250 or something, that puts them in the win, and that's kind of what they have to do. So that isn't being predicted here. Georgia, as you would expect, can put up some rushing yards, and with Gurley back, this number could probably even be higher. Auburn, they're not super great at stopping the rush. They're okay at it, I guess, but nevertheless, I mean, it's really puts Georgia up into that near 250 mark. But I expect them to be able to run the ball well. We'll see. I mean, Auburn's really going to have to sell out to the run. They're going to have to force that quarterback to throw and throw often, because if you allow Chubb and Gurley to run, I think even if Auburn has some success early stopping it, I don't think they would be able to do it all game. That would be a very difficult task, especially for this defense. So anyway, this is not only a statistical analysis. There's some of my opinions thrown in there about the actual game. But anyway, as much as I am an Auburn fan and I would love to see Auburn, the numbers aren't there. But we can hope for Georgia to have a horrible game like they've had several times, because you don't never know which Georgia team's going to show up. On the other hand, say what you will about Auburn, it's pretty much the same team every week. And pretty much whether on the road or at home. They're slightly worse on the road, but they have had some great road wins. But you pretty much get the same thing. You're going to get a mediocre defense until late in the game, and they'll get a little better. You're going to have an offense that at times looks brilliant and at other times can't move the ball, but they generally will move the ball. So it's really going to depend on which Georgia team plays. But I expect Georgia to be up for this game. They're going to be at home. It has great implications for Georgia. So I expect them to get up for the game, and I expect it to potentially not go well for Auburn. That doesn't stop me from being an Auburn fan. It doesn't stop me from believing in my Auburn Tigers. That's just what the numbers say. War Eagle anyways.